Yeah, exactly.
Good. Okay, we're live. I'm going to call this meeting to order. It's the Monday, July 11th meeting of Electoral Area Services Committee. Before we begin, I'll just do a little bit of housekeeping for those of you who are in the room. If there's in case of an emergency, the emergency exits are to the sides of the room, the door you came in. The muster station is in the parking lot. And if anyone needs to use the washroom, you can just go around the corner and in behind us. With that, I want to acknowledge that we are doing our business on the unceded and traditional territory of the Comox First Nation, keepers of this land. With that, we'll start with the agenda. We have a management report for July for receipt. Would someone like to move receipt?
Move receipt.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. And do any comments, Director Grieve?
Well, I'm very happy to see that it's been pretty well halved in size.
Yes.
I think this was going to be the longest running management report in history. So it's nice to see we're down to some doables. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, just a quick one, Madam Chair.
Yes, please go ahead.
So I'm just wondering if the one from the last meeting around school districts in Royston and Arden School, it's not showing on the management report. I just want to make sure that it lives somewhere in the minds of staff.
Great. Can I turn that as up?
Yes, for sure. I think you were referring to access to the Royston School and the opportunities of working with the school district and others. That is on our action plan. We'll be sure it's added to the management report.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Director Arbor. Any other comments? On receipt then, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. All right, we have Advisory Planning Commission minutes for receipt.
Move both sets.
Moved and seconded. And any comments on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Great. The next item is Electoral Area A Development Variance Permit for, Horn Street, 5553 Horn Street for receipt.
Move receipt.
Moved and seconded, and over to staff.
Thank you very much, Chair and Directors. And Dylan Thiessen from the Planning Department is here to introduce the report and answer your questions.
Thanks, Dylan.
Thank you very much and good morning. Through the chair to the directors, a development variance permit application has been received to reduce the rear yard setback for a proposed accessory building on the property at 5553 Horn Street, which is approximately 0.07 hectares in size, zoned residential 1, and is designated as being within a settlement node. The proposed accessory building will be approximately 44 square meters in size and will be under 4.5 meters in height. The setbacks sought are a 1 meter rear yard setback for the foundation and a 0.5 meter or 0.5 meter setback for the eaves. This is what would be permitted for a building of this height in the R1 zone in relation to a rear yard lot line, but the property backs onto a Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure laneway, and Section 402 of the zoning bylaw states that no part of a structure shall encroach within 4.5 meters of a road right of way. The applicant has already received approval from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure for the proposed setback. Additionally, the Advisory Planning Commission for Area A voted to support the request for a variance, particularly noting the ministry's approval and no current use of the laneway. Staff sent notification letters in the mail to adjacent property owners within a 50-meter radius. We did not receive any written correspondence, but did have one positive phone call with a nearby property owner who did not have any concerns and was just looking for more information. As such, staff are recommending that the variance be approved, as a setback reduction is not likely to alter the form and caricature of the neighborhood, particularly given the small lots within Union Bay. It's not likely to increase privacy concerns given the height and type of structure, and it is not likely to make the building more difficult to maintain. Additionally, of course, the ministry having already provided approval and indicating a lack of use of the laneway is helpful as well. I do not believe the applicant was able to join us today, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, great. I see a question from Director Grieve.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Question through the chair, through CO to staff. So I'm looking here and I see the railway. Now, would the laneway owned by MOTI just be outside the railway right away?
Thank you, Director Grieve. Through the chair to the director, if you look at the property there, we've got the subject property in red with the laneway right behind it. That triangular property is actually private property and connected to 5563 Horn Street. And then it's the railway behind that triangular private property. So there is a separation between the laneway and the railway.
Oh, okay. So there's a,
yeah.
What is the width of the railway ROW? You know?
Not off the top of my head. No.
Okay, but it's not like a roadway. It's not that big.
Correct. No.
Okay, so they're separate things. Yeah. Well, obviously, this is one of those teeny tiny lots where we're probably in vogue at the turn of the century, and now we have to deal with. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Director Grieve. Any other questions? Seeing none. And we don't have any other in the addendum. No. Director Arbor, you're okay?
Yeah, thanks. That's, I think everything is straightforward. The APC looked at it. All good with me.
Okay, great. On receipt then, all in favor? Opposed? And that's carried unanimously. And we have a recommendation.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. And are there any further comments or questions on the recommendation that we approve the DBP? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on, we have the next item is Electoral Area C, Farmland Protection for 7648 Island Highway Edge Grain Forest Products Limited for receipt.
Move receipt.
Moved and seconded.
Thank you, Chair and Directors, and Ton True will introduce this report and answer your questions.
Great, thank you. Over to Ton.
Good morning, everybody. Through the CO to Madam Chair and the directors. The owner of a commercial zone lot along the Island Highway in Black Creek are proposing to construct an additional commercial building on the lot. Given the proposed siting and size, it requires a development variance permit and a development permit. First, the variance addresses a regulation that otherwise requires a building 22.5 meter setback from the center line of the Island Highway. After some consultation with the Ministry of Transportation, a 20.6 meter setback was determined to be acceptable. This will allow the building to meet regular lot line setbacks, even if additional road dedication occurs in the future. Public notifications were mailed and the CVRD received one correspondence stating no objection. Second, the development permit must be issued consistent with two set of guidelines. The commercial industrial form character guidelines, which requires the development maintains a rural character of the area through landscaping, siting, and buildings exterior design. To achieve this, the applicants propose a gray concreted metal exterior finish with dark gray accents, a public facing entrance along Surgeon Road, and a work area facing into the lot. Landscaping will include tall grasses between the building and chain link fence along the roadside lot line. For the farmland protection guidelines, requires the additional agricultural interface be reviewed in light of the proposed development and requires consideration of setbacks, landscaping, fencing, and buffering. The referrals of the proposal were sent to the Agricultural Advisory Plan Commission and the regional agrologists. After hearing their input, including their agrologist letter in Appendix C, the applicant amended their features to accommodate additional landscaping and buffering. The result is an 18-meter building setback with 10 meter of vegetation, including a row of trees suitable for growing taller than the solid wood fence, plus 3 rows of shrubs. Madam Chair, staff is satisfied that the proposed building and site features are consistent with the development permit guidelines and recommends approval of the development permit and the variance. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, Madam Chair, Just so you know, their applicants are online. Their name is Sean Nelson and Dennis Nelson.
Sure, thank you. Sean, would you like to add anything to the presentation?
No, I'm good at this point. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Do the directors have any questions for either the applicant or for staff? Director Brief.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair, and through CAO to staff. I know there was a lot of discussion at the Area C APC on this one, and I know that they were tossing around different labels for what kind of activities going on here. Wood processing was viewed as being too vague. It could include a sawmill or a big planer or something like that. When in actuality, it's more like joinery or cabinet making, like finishing work. So I'm just wondering, did we end up coming up with some kind of an appropriate a label for the activity?
Through Madam Chair to Director Grieve, I think you're probably referring to the rezoning application that is still in process. This application is a development permit and a variance application for the purpose of their proposed commercial building. When we go through the zoning amendment, yes, you are correct. There was a lot of conversation in regards to the proposed land use, regards to woodworking, and staff will be working with the applicant to ensure that we improve that language.
Did you any further? Go ahead, Dr. Green.
Another question, if I may. I know they're talking about the letter of credit and security deposit for full cost of fencing and landscaping works of $57,000. Is that the correct figure? Seems like a lot, but.
Did you want to comment on it?
Through Madam Chair to Director Grieve, yes, that's correct. That figure was given to us by their professional landscaper. As you're aware, through the development permit, that security deposit is just on hold until the owner completes his installation of their vegetation. Once it's completed, staff will return that deposit back to the applicant.
Boy, we're in the wrong racket. Thank you.
I'm just going to check. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor of receipt? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. And we have recommendation 1.
Move it.
Oh, sorry. Staff have just reminded me we have an addendum item for receipt. Can we
Move
move
receipt.
Moved? And I can second. And any comments on that addendum? No, all in favor of receipt? Opposed, carried unanimously. So, and is there anyone in the gallery who has any comments on this application? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on then. So I believe recommendation 1 has been moved and seconded. Comments or questions? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Recommendation 2 has been moved and I can second. Any comments on recommendation 2? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Item number 4, it's a site-specific amendment in Area A to floodplain management bylaw for 3695 Eagle View Drive for receipt.
Move receipt.
Moved and seconded. Over to staff.
Thank you, Chair and Directors, and Brian Chow is here to introduce this report and answer your questions.
Brian, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So through the CEO to the chair and committee members, we have a site-specific exemption to the floodplain bylaw request for the property at 3611 Bayden Road and 3695 Eagle View Drive. This property is approximately 0.68 hectares in size and is zone residential 1. The applicants are proposing to build a carriage house, which, as a reminder, is a 2-story dwelling unit with accessory use on the ground floor and residential use on the 2nd story. The proposed carriage house is approximately 15 meters from a rainwater detention pond, and this building is subject to the floodplain management bylaw. The applicants propose to reduce the minimum flood construction level from 1.5 meters to 0.5 meters. Normally, a carriage house would not have to meet this minimum flood construction level if certain items, fixed items such as furnace, hot water tank, heat pumps, and other fixed items are above this minimum level. The applicants confirm that there will be items damageable by flood waters and that will be located below this minimum threshold. Consequently, a site-specific exemption to the floodplain bylaw is an option. Another option is to import fill to raise the carriage house enough so that the items damageable by flood waters would meet the minimum flood construction level. The applicants chose the site-specific option in this regard. In support of this application, the applicants submitted a professional engineering report in support of this application. In the report, the engineers commented that the proposed development site is naturally sloped towards the pond. The topography directs water into the ditch before flooding onto the subject property beyond the minimum flood construction level of 0.5 meters of the carriage house. The engineers confirmed that the proposed carriage house is considered safe for the residential use. Based on the discussions in the staff report, staff supports the site-specific exemption of the floodplain specifications, and one of the conditions will be to register a Section 219 restrictive covenant on the land title to include the engineering report, which will include an acknowledgement that no disaster financial assistance funding is available for the building or its contents, and releasing and indemnifying the CVRD from liability in the event of any damage caused by flooding or erosion. The agents are here, as well as the owners are here to answer any questions you may have, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you. Would the agents or the owners like to add any comments to the presentation? Yeah, please go ahead, if you don't mind using a mic so that Director Arbor can hear your comments too.
No, I don't have anything to add to this.
Okay, thanks. I don't know if you heard that, Director Arbor, but no comments from the applicant. Do directors have questions? I see Director Greaves' lights on.
Well, I'm quite familiar with this area, of course, living on Rennie Road. So the engineering report says no mitigation is required because the complete flood assessment determined that the site is not subject to a flood hazard. So it's just a retention pond. My question is, I guess, through the chair and CEO to the applicant, has there ever been, even with the torrential rains we had a few weeks ago, has there ever been any issue with it overflowing its banks? No, so it's just, you probably have that high water table, right? You know, with the clay and yeah, okay. Understood, thanks.
Great. Director Arbor, any questions from you? Oh, you're on mute.
I was just going to add, it seems sensible, and I agree with staff and the approach. So no concerns here.
Great, thanks. And is there anyone in the gallery that'd like to speak to this application? No, and addendum, we don't have any others. Okay, all those are checked. So then on receipt, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And we have a recommendation.
So moved.
And that's to approve the permit. And with all of the parts attached to the site-specific exemption. Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item number 5, Electoral Area C, Farmland Protection Development Permit for 1595 Seaview Road for receipt.
Move receipt.
Moved and seconded, and over to staff.
Thank you very much. And Brian Chow will present this report and answer any of your questions.
Great, thanks. And over to Brian.
Okay. Through the CEO to the chair and committee members, the property is located at 1595 Seaview Road and is approximately 0.16 hectares in size in Area C. There's currently an existing water connection to the property, and the property is within the Black Creek Oyster Bay Fire Protection Local Service Area and relies on a private on-site septic system. This application is a Farmland Protection Development Permit, as the applicants propose to build a single detached dwelling and accessory building within 30 meters of an adjacent ALR lot. The adjacent ALR land, located at 1605 Seaview Road, also known as Pottage Farm, is approximately 26.3 hectares in area. Currently, there's a single detached dwelling, a mobile home, farm buildings, and a sawmill on this farmland. The regional growth strategy and OCP designate this subject property within rural settlement areas, and the farmland DP area guidelines include requirements for fencing and buffering to be installed and maintained, and to help owners appropriately site their buildings and structures in order to mitigate any potential land use conflicts between residential use and the adjacent farmland use. The applicants submitted the written brief in Appendix B to explain the siting of the proposed house and accessory buildings. And they also talked to the adjacent farm owners, who responded that as long as the CVRD's Agricultural Advisory Planning Commission is satisfied with this proposal, then it will be acceptable to them, because there are other similar applications along Seaview Road in the past. The applicants are committed to have a continuous vegetative buffer, which is shown in the planting plan in the staff report. The plants chosen will reach maturity in heights between 1.5 to 3.7 meters tall. They will improve the current chain link fence with a wire fence consistent of that with the neighbors. And the applicant will submit a landscape deposit in order to ensure that these activities will be carried out. This application was referred to Ministry of Agriculture and Food for their comments, and staff received their comments and attached as Appendix C. Overall, they have no concerns with the siting of the house. They did bring up comments about the proposed accessory building being sited initially at 5 meters and the open nature of the building. The applicants reviewed these comments and made changes as needed. So the accessory building will now be sited at 7 meters, and applicants provided more rationale as the adjacent farmland is actually higher up on a forested hill. So there'll be some topographic distance to provide some buffer as well. And the applicants are committed to provide a Applicants are committed to provide a drip irrigation system to maintain the overall buffer. Lastly, the Agricultural Advisory Planning Commission met on June 16th, and they were in support of this proposal because, one, it does not interfere with adjacent farm uses. The farmers have no objections, and this proposal is consistent with others made in around the area. So all in all, staff is recommending this DPP issued based on the property size and shape and applicants' willingness to make changes in response to comments. And that's all I have to say. The owners are in attendance to answer any questions you may have, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Brian. Would the owners like to add any comments to the presentation? Yeah, if you could come up to the mic, thank you. Is that mic on? Okay.
First, I'd like to apologize for my phone going off. I thought it turned it off. Yes, the farm behind us is a very steep hillside, and so it's not conducive to any type of farming where we would worry about the spraying of manure, dust, anything like that coming our way. And our planting in the back is we have to realize it's our backyard. So it'll be done, properly and maintained very properly. We're very, very proud owners of how we keep our lands. Any questions?
Sure. Do the directors have any questions of the owners or of staff? I don't see any, so thank you.
Thank you.
And Noah, just double checking any addendums? No. Oh, Director Grieve, sorry.
Yeah, I hate to keep harping on this, but I think at $2,687.50, you're probably getting off good, considering the requirement for the edge screen development there. My understanding is that that deposit is given back after 5 years. Is that correct?
Go ahead, Steph.
Okay, so through the CEO to the chair to Director Grieve, in landscaping, the deposit is given back once we obtain professional confirmation that has been done properly. So we rely on something written from a, say, professional landscaper or professional in nature. Once we receive that confirmation, then we'll release the security deposit back.
Yeah, it seems 5 years stuck in my mind. Okay. And the same would go for edge green?
Through Madam Chair to Director Grieve, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I attended the Agricultural Advisory Committee and noted that the steepness of the slope also is conducive, as the owner said. There's not going to be really much activity on that steep slope, so that's another additional buffer to the farmland. So I don't have any concerns myself. I don't see any other comments. So on receipt then, all in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. We have a recommendation. Moved, and I can second. And comments on the recommendation to approve with the security deposit as noted by Director Grieve. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Madam Chair, the next two items involve applications to the Agricultural Land Reserve, and I remove myself from consideration of those as my wife is the chair of the Land Commission. So James Warren will sit in.
Sure. So item number 6 is in Electoral Area C. It's a subdivision within the Agricultural Land Reserve for 6751 Farnham Road for receipt.
Move receipt.
Moved and seconded, and over to staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and then introduce Brian Chow to introduce the staff report. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, through the Deputy CEO to the chair and the committee. The subject property is located at 6751 Farmland Road and is within the ALR, and currently it does not have farm status. The size of the property is 10.3 hectares in size, and the proponent wishes to subdivide the property into two using under Section 514 of the Local Government Act, which is subdivision to provide residence for a relative. The proposed lots are going to be 2.29 hectares and 8.01 hectares in size. Currently, the northern portion has been cleared, has hay production, and has residential use. With respect to existing structures, there's one single detached dwelling and one agricultural building on the property. For services, the property relies on private water and private on-site septic system and is within the Merville Fire Protection Local Service Area. As this is a subdivision within the AL application, the ALC permits applicant to submit the application, but it does have to be reviewed by the local government to make sure it's consistent with local land use policies and bylaws. Just a reminder, as this proposal is related to increased residential density, it should be noted that as of December 31st of 2021, AOR regulations allow one additional dwelling on lots within AOR on condition that the additional dwelling be no larger than 90 square meters in floor area for lots 40 hectares or smaller, or 186 square meters in floor area for lots greater than 40 hectares. So this could be an option for a relative to reside on the subject property. If a 2-lot subdivision were to be supported, each of the 2 lots will have be able to have the single detached dwelling and additional dwelling unit, thus doubling the density. The regional growth strategy and OCP have policies to discourage subdivision in the ARR to avoid increasing residential density on ARR land and on fragmenting ARR land, which potentially contributes to the conversion of farmland to non-farm uses. According to the applicants, the proposed subdivision will be consistent with lot sizes and uses of nearby ARR lands, and there are other areas within in the neighborhood are used for timber growth and hobby farms. They believe that a 2-hectare lot will improve agricultural opportunities than its current state. The applicant's subdivision submission is attached as Appendix A. And in addition, the applicant submitted additional information as addendum, which is attached in the agenda for your review and consideration. This application was sent to Ministry of Agriculture and Food for comments. And generally, we received the comments, and generally they did not support this subdivision because of fragmentation of ARR land and would increase land cost per area for future farm business opportunities. They also referenced the recent changes to ARR regulations to allow for additional residents. The Agricultural Advisory Planning Commission met on June 16th of 2022, and they did not support the proposal and recommended applicants to explore alternative solutions for succession planning, such as additional residents permitted under the recent changes. Staff recommended that the application be refused and not referred to the ALC on the basis as comments presented at this presentation, as it increased residential density, reduced land available for farming purposes, and there are an option for residential flexibility within the ARR. The owner, Mr. Flynn, is in attendance to answer any questions you may have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, staff. Does the owner want to add any comments to the presentation? Please, yeah, come up to the mic.
Yeah, so as Brian said there, it's not being supported. I think the addendum hasn't been really touched on the additional information that I submitted. I'm not sure if the board had a chance to review it. When I read the report, there wasn't a farm plan submitted at the time of the application, because it didn't indicate that it was required. So that's why I came in late. So I see comments here that it's not being supported for increased residential use, and I'm being suggested that the additional carriage house that's allowed, it's not about an additional carriage house. There will be additional carriage house put on the northwest corner of the property. You can see on the map there, there's a little clearing. That's already going to happen sometime in the next little bit here. What this is to establish a separate area in the back that's not being utilized for my son to start his little farming operation. Now there's a farm plan submitted to this. Again, we haven't gone over, we can go over it if you'd like. I meet all the requirements that are concerned as far as section 58 goes there. You know, I understand that I read the official community plan and the operational, the OCP there. You know, it discourages subdivisions of lands in there. Yet, you know, they want to encourage farming. This area was always in the ALR as a large chunk for 500 hectares timber operation. It was never a farmland. I think in '09, previous owners came ahead and adjusted lot lines to allow for subdivision. So in one sense, we don't want fragmentation of land, yet we fragmented it down to 20-acre lots from a 400-acre lot. So it could be sold. And in the comments in the commission, when they approved this area, it was, it's in here somewhere, but the comment believes the realignments of the lot boundaries will facilitate development of agricultural land in the future. So the areas where I bought one, as per what the land commission wants, right? They want people out there, they want to convert this into, I'm in the process of doing it. It's a big challenge. It is not, the front part of the property is decent soils. The back of the property is very limited in what you can do. I made the decision that I got to deal with the front part of the property, and the back part is going to stay as trees. So if this subdivision doesn't go approved, then that's what will happen with it. But given the reasons why it's not being supported, I don't think it's, and again, I didn't get the information in time, so I wasn't aware of how detailed everyone wanted this application. But as probably most people here know, that you can't get financing on land you don't own. You can't get financing on farmland, ALR land, with your regular banks. I went through this when I bought the property. Farm Credit Canada is the only one that's really farm friendly. They are more than happy to help finance and start this proposal for the farmland as attached. My son is looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. I have many years experience in, I grew up dealing with Christmas trees, working on Christmas tree farms. I grew up working on farms. I have a consulting business that deals with forestry for the last 25 years, land management and planning. So I've got lots of experience to mentor, and I'm looking forward to it. I think we have an opportunity here to introduce somebody new to farming. Build the area out there as it's intended to, as it's ALR land. And again, there's a, under the section 514 where, you doesn't have to meet the certain obligations as the zoning of minimum 8 hectares each. So, yeah, I look forward to any questions you have, but yeah, it's hopefully the new addendum there clarifies some of the issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Directors, do you have any questions? Director Arbor?
Yeah, thanks to the applicant for adding that perspective and information. I think, when I read the two agendas, fully understand why staff and, have recommended this, but we still seem to be in a little bit of a difficult place around these, where it's clear there's an intergenerational intent here. We saw one of those last month or the month before on non-ALR land. It sounds like there's intent to farm, and yeah, it's difficult. We can't have it both ways. I think in the next report and the next item, staff have a recommendation for us to really look at the agricultural plan for the Comox Valley, and really in the context of housing and intergenerational transferability and all these different things. I don't think we've nailed it yet, both with ourselves and with the province. So my question to staff is, would the farm plan hadn't really been considered by staff? So would that change the equation at all if we did a deferral, or would staff likely end up with a similar recommendation?
Staff like to comment? Sure.
Through the Deputy CEO to Madam Chair and to Director Arbor, that's a great question. Staff is right now is reviewing their engagement plan for the agricultural plan that we're hoping to proceed in the fall in 2023. Through the consultation and public engagement, staff will be reviewing their the policies in their OCP, but also to the zone pilot to see how we can move forward with new policies. So as of today, I can't answer that question because we're still working through the process.
If I can have a follow-up, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that might be one option, I guess, if the applicant's amenable to that, because otherwise we would potentially kill it today based on the recommendation. But there's a couple things, I guess, for me that they're difficult choices in a way, right, as communities, because what I'm starting to realize some of those applications, not in this particular one, but on some of them, it's like the 1,000 square foot secondary dwelling is not considered big enough by a lot of standards if people want to have their kids. So there's just a few policies that it'd be good to have a fresh look at, whether there's adjustments we can make. In the meantime, maybe the question back to the applicant is there a rush to the finish line here, or whether they would be amenable to wait out a year and see how processes and review work out.
That would be for you.
Not really in a rush, but it's not going to say let's just defer for a year. I think we should proceed here. I think there's opportunities to. I'll kind of echo what I agree with what you kind of said there. We're in a change here now, and from this plan from 2014. I think it needs to be looked at here because it's there's words that are discouraging and stuff like that. But we didn't realize 2 years ago, 3 years ago how the world's going to change here, and it doesn't reflect that in there. There's mention of this core settlement area you want people to move into as part of the growth strategy. There's so many things there we can chat about. The cost of getting closer to town here is just completely, it's not even an option for anyone to really to get into farming. We got affordable housing issues. So there's an opportunity here to help somebody start with the help of mentoring from his parents. He's not being given anything. This is not going to be a here you go, son, do this. He's going to work for it. He's going to pay for it. If anyone wants to look it up, I don't have facts and figures here, but 5.5 acres within 10-kilometer radius of Courtney here, you're probably looking at $750,000. So how do you start farming when you got to put that out and you're paying $10,000 a month on a mortgage on that you can't get a mortgage for because no one will give you the money for it. So it's kind of where we're sitting here. We want this, but we don't want to do this. So we want new people in so we can contribute to the local farming market. I got 3 young bulls at home. There's not many kids that are showing interest in farming these days. So when someone shows a little bit of that, and it's encouraging to them. To answer your question, I'm in no rush, but I don't think it's worth putting off at this moment. There's probably bigger discussions that can have about the overall process, but that's probably another time and place. Thank you.
Director Grieve.
Thanks, Madam Chair. First off, as one of the last living fossils on this board, you probably know the history of Timber West splitting up this property, and the whole community was pretty well up in a big fervor over it. I think they originally wanted something like 40 different lots or what have you in the area. And they ended up settling for the existing lots on the Farnham area in South Farnham. and they put it into the LR as well. So that's how they bought their community support.
Yes.
So now, of course, we're talking about dissecting it again. So, you know, it just, although I couldn't agree more, we're seeing more and more of these things coming before us where it's unaffordable for the next generation to get a start. As you said, you can build a secondary dwelling, but then the ALR, although they do allow it now, rather than just a cowboy trailer, they allow a 900 square or 960 square foot home, which is really not adequate. But what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of division between levels of government. In your case, you've got the LR, you've got Ministry of Highways for the subdivision process. You got the 514, 946 used to be, I think, is also a provincial call. So, you know, as local elected officials, and we're sort of at the bottom end of the food chain as far as governance goes, you know, we're kind of between a rock and a hard place, or between a rocky land and a hard place. And I imagine your land is pretty rocky, right?
Yes, yeah. So there's not much topsoil there.
Yeah. So, you know, you have a little bit of hay, so you get your farm status. But there's no easy answer, no easy way out of this. I mean, there are those who just say, you know, it'd be great if everybody just, you know, went down to Courtney and bought a $800,000 2-bedroom apartment. That's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And like you say, if you do have a next generation that's interested in farming, you know, how do they get a foothold on this? So I really think that levels of government got to keep talking as well. I mean, you know, the ALC is beyond our control. The subdivision process is beyond our control. All we can do is kind of act as gatekeepers, sending it forward. And all my career, I've always been in favor of sending everything forward to the ALC and let them make the call. They're making the rules up. They can stick their necks out. Don't put us in this position. I can't say I get support around the board anymore with that outlook, but it served well. So, you know, I think that this is a discussion we're going to have in the near future, because as you say, times have changed. Not only have they changed, but they're going to change a lot more in very short order.
Yep.
So, you know, the other thing was brought up was that was, I think, an error by staff, was the fact that if we did split this parcel, then both sections would be allowed to put secondary dwellings. Actually, anytime we've approved a 514 in the electoral area, we've always made provisions that there is no secondary dwelling on that lot. So that's a red herring right off the bat.
Could I ask staff to just clarify that?
Sure.
Through their, Deputy CEO to the chair to directly brief. This is different than other 514 we have seen. Main reason being this is on AR land. The provincial legislation make it so that if you are in AR land, you can apply for section 514 and any zoning bylaw regulations to limit subdivision size would not apply. So there's no rezoning involved with this application at all. So that means without a rezoning application, a CVRD, we cannot put in a clause saying thou shalt limit to 1 dwelling per unit, because we lost that ability to put that requirement. So again, because this is AR land, the legislation states that under section 514 on AR land, the minimum lot area does not apply. It has to go through the proper process, but then there's no rezone application involved, and therefore we cannot put a limit to 1 dwelling per lot in this instance. Whereas others in the past we have seen, they are not on AR land, and they all had to go through rezoning, and that we were able to put that residential density limit there.
So again, levels of government aren't talking to each other. And again, they're setting the bar so high to assure it fails. So, yeah, I don't know what to do. You know, I could be a lone wolf and support it, but it doesn't look like it's going to go through. So maybe better to bide our time and hope that, you know, through working with senior levels of government, that we can come up with something that's a little more equitable for the larger property owners, especially people who want to farm. I think really working across purposes is getting us absolutely nowhere. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Grieve. I had a couple of questions myself. You know, I noted when I attended the Agricultural Advisory Committee that there were concerns about just the farmability of that back section that your son would be getting because of the poor quality of the soil. Do you have any comments about how, I mean, it's going to be difficult, and as you said, clearing land is expensive, and how, I mean, I guess we can't really make judgment calls in terms of, you know, homesteading versus farming, but how, I don't know if you want to comment about how much time and energy your son can put into making a small acreage like that actually work for him.
Yep, I'll touch on that. There's two things actually I want to touch on if I get a chance here. So with the farm plan, and my background in forestry here, so the plan is to break the parcel up into 9 equal sections, 0.6 of an acre each. So 2 of those sections would be a homestead, farmyard, barn, house, the chickens, pigs, and whatnot. The other 7 sections will be cleared, 1 section per year, 0.6 of an acre, in November of each year, and then planted. Benefit of clearing in November is the standing regen that's there now can be utilized, the boughs for wreaths and stuff, right? So you can utilize the product, the limbs and branches off the trees that are existing there right now. So you plant them, and then you have a rotation. So the stock would be 3-year stock you would plant. It would accelerate the initial harvest in 4 years' time. So it's a 7-year rotation plan. And so that it's not, you're not going to clear cut the whole thing and do it all at once. It would be just, it would supplement a few things on the farm, you know, the products and whatnot. But you don't want to bite too much off at once, because you've got to be realistic about this too. So, you know, win the lotto and yeah, we can go in and clear it all and plant it all at once. But the idea is to get a rotational crop at a 7-year interval. So and some of what I'm doing on my property there is it may end up going that way as well. It's the one thing here that Timber West left us was a really nice stand of Scotch brew, and there's no way around it. It's there forever. The other thing that left me down front there is when they cleared all these areas for homesteads, they took all the good soil off the top. And so you got your nice bony rock there. So there is no topsoil down on the front portion, but Broome loves that stuff. So I'm cutting it and keeping it down, and slowly clearing, as you can see in some of the pictures there. But it's a step process. It's not all happen at once. So it's 0.6 of an acre, I would say, in 4 to 6 years, it'll be productive as far as the trees go. Yeah. So that would be the time frame. And just to touch on one thing that was said earlier about, you know, I don't think there's going to be a wave of people running in, putting these applications in, because it's not designed to be easy or to be made user friendly. But under 514, I would say there's very few properties in the valley here that meet all the requirements, because there's 3 or 4 requirements, and if you miss out one of them, then you can't put an application in. So I don't think we're going to create once this moves forward, gets approved, there's not going to be a wave of, hey, let's do this, because it's 1 in 20 might actually meet potentially meet the definition.
Thank
That
you.
helps.
Questions to staff. We referred to the fact that the agricultural plan hadn't been seen by the ecologists and by our Ag Advisory Committee prior to them looking at this application. I think Director Arbor might have referred to this. Is it possible to refer this back to both of those bodies and people for comment on the viability of the agricultural plan? Is that an option for us?
Okay, through the Deputy CEO to the Chair. If that's the wish of the committee to present the addendum to the Ag ABC and the Ministry of Agriculture staff for further consideration and comments. That's if that's the recommendation, then that's staff will proceed as is.
Okay, so that's an option then. Director Arbor?
Yeah, I'm kind of in favor of that, and not being a specialist in these things. I think just the general policy direction we should look at is if the if the farm plan and all those different things are credible and basically lead to more farming and help new generations settle into the valley, and I think it'd be great to use this example in our discussions with the ministry or others as, how can we better create a framework that's more encouraging? I realize what we don't want is for people, and I'm not saying, I haven't seen anything that's the case here, but we don't want to be abused over time either, where people start subdividing our land and we end up with what happened in the Lower Mainland, where it may not get farmed, it just becomes basically estates. And I know there's other barriers that Director Hamir and others have worked on around, the low threshold for farm status of 2,500 and all those different things. There's many things that I think need to be fixed. But yeah, I think that having that additional document of the farm plan, I think what the chair just said around kicking it back to those who really pay attention to this for an extra consideration. It may not change the analysis and the recommendations, but I don't want to suppress what seems really good intent. And if it maxes, even if the land may not be super productive, if it leads to it being in some type of production to the benefit of Valley residents, we know how much more farms and productivity we need in the Valley from our current status. So I'm not saying subdivision is the only path, but I wouldn't exit at this point. I think it'd be good to kick it to the back to the groups for consideration and for our staff to really put their minds with the ministry around. As you say, that might be a longer process as we could look at agricultural lands and the affordability housing crisis. But yeah, I definitely don't want to I don't want to cut it today. Let's put it that way. So I'm in favor of moving a slightly different recommendation to just basically refer and defer.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant or for staff? No. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to say anything? Okay, so I'll excuse you from the table. So thank you.
Thank you.
I guess we'll move in. Any addendums on this item? We have a piece of correspondence from, that we need to approve from West Coast Timber Consultants. Do we move receipt of? Receipt of the report. Okay, so we have to vote on receipt. So we'll vote on receipt of the report first. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And we have a correspondence to receive. Moved. And I can second. All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. And would someone like to put forward a recommendation?
Yeah, I'll move that the application be referred back to I guess the agricultural APC with the addendum for consideration? And was this going to Area C and the ministry as well, or what would staff prefer? Is this good just back to the APC?
Okay, through Deputy CEO to the Chair to Director Arbor, for farmland development permit applications, it's been a process to refer this to the Ag APC and the regional agrologists only, as this is directly related to farming.
That sounds awesome. So I'll insert those three. Yeah.
Right. And Lisa, you've got that in. Okay, so it's a referral back to the agricultural APC and the agrologists to include the addendum. Is there a second? Director Grieve seconds. Any comments on that recommendation of referral? Okay, is it referral or deferral? Referral. Okay, thank you. So does anyone need to see the referral on the screen? Do we know what we're voting on? I'll just maybe wait. Or Lisa, do you want to just read it back? Sure, we'll pull it up just to double check. Okay, that the application be referred back to the agricultural APC and regional agrologist with the addendum for consideration. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? And carried unanimously. Thank you for that. All right. Would the directors like to continue on, or do you want to take a break?
Can we take like 4 or 5 minutes?
Sure, we'll take a 5-minute break and come back at 11:05.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We'll come back. The next item, item number 7 in Electoral Area C. It's an agricultural land reserve, non-adhering residential use for 7667 Island Highway for receipt.
Move receipt.
Moved and seconded and over to staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ton True is here to present this staff report and application. Ton.
Thanks, Don.
Through the Deputy CEO to Madam Chair and Directors, first of all, I'd like to introduce their the owners of their property here, Dave and Tanetta Gadet. So for this ALR application, the board has the option to refuse the application or forward the application to the ALC. If the board opts to forward the application, comments and recommendations may also be sent with the application. Since the beginning of the year, the ALR regulations have allowed property owners within the ALR to construct an additional house on the condition that the house is less than 90 square meters in area. Anything larger requires an approval of a non-adhering residential use application reviewed by the regional district in accordance with the OCP policies and by the Agricultural Land Commission. In this case, the applicant submitted an application seeking to construct a 186 square meter additional house. The Agricultural Advisory Plan Commission reviewed their proposal and recommends supporting the application. A referral was sent to the regional agrologist. The response in Appendix B recommends that the applicant limit the size to 90 square meters, or otherwise expand the existing house or add a suite to it. The official community plan policies on additional dwelling directs that consideration be given to a few factors, including where the dwelling would be located and impact on long-term agricultural potential. The policies recommend such buildings and their supporting infrastructure be grouped together. Based on the discussion with staff, the applicant proposed in Appendix C with consideration of grouping the house at the front of the lot with existing house, but it concludes that such a grouping would interfere with farm operation. As proposed, would endorse locating a new second permanent home site deep in the lot. Staff does not recommend approval. Madam Chair, staff also notes that the work on updating and modernizing the Comox Valley Agricultural Plan is scheduled for later this year and throughout 2023. Staff also recommend that the board direct that the agricultural plan includes specific consultation and consideration of the impact of additional dwelling for providing key principles to refer when processing this type of application. Thank you, Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And would the applicant like to add anything to the presentation? Yeah, just hit your button and thank you.
We are in dire need of help on the farm. There's just the two of us. Our children are grown up out the door. My husband has been disabled since 2001. He is the main worker. And we fast track 21 years later. He needs 2 knee replacements, hip replacement, shoulder replacement. His body is falling apart. And we have an opportunity where my daughter and her son-in-law, he's awesome, hard worker. They own their own farmland down in the Cowichan Valley, which is currently up for sale. They haven't accepted an offer. They know the need, that we are in desperate need for help and are willing to come to the farm and help us. And eventually, obviously, they're going to own it. So he himself is excellent with machinery. He was a butcher growing up, and he has big plans to put the farm into second gear. He wants to, create his own butcher shop and pump up the production of the beef cattle we have. And when it comes to location, we thought long and hard for the location of the land. Currently, our house sits on the very right-hand side of our property. It's long and narrow. And to the front, we have the highway. To the left, we have prime farmland that we use for grazing and hay. We are on a well. There is no water in the front portion of our property. We have 2 shallow wells, It doesn't, we run out of water every summer. It's barely enough for me and him. We still have to buy water. When I had my children, they were constantly driving to Comox to my mom's house to have showers because there's just, the water's not there. We even went and paid to have a drilled well, $18,000 out the door. We did not find water. So it's not realistic to put an addition on our house for them to be there. No matter where we put the second dwelling, it's going to have its own well, its own septic. And there's just nowhere around where our current house is that will not take away from prime farmland. So it always leads us to the back of the property. There's a spring back there. There's tons of water. There's an area that's not being used, it's not being farmed. That would be perfect to put the house on. We have a cattle corral that's back there. We have a road that runs all the way down the length of our property. It's been there since day one. The semi trucks go back there to pick up the cows in the corral. And we're proposing just to build a house just off of that road. It's close to the corral. And to me, it's the perfect location. Basically because of the water situation. I don't know what else I can add. I know it seems like there's a problem with the location, so I guess I would like to ask, where do you propose the second dwelling be built? And, obviously we're asking for additional square footage because they have a family. And a 960 square foot home is just too small. And there's nothing better than to have family take over and do the farming for us. We don't plan on going anywhere, but we do need help. We're in desperate need of help. So that is our application.
Great, thank you. Are you open to questions?
Sure.
Okay. Do directors have any questions? Director Arbor?
Yeah, thanks. I guess I referred to this application a little bit without the specifics in my prior comments in the other one, but again, everything I just heard from the applicant makes a lot of good sense around the knowledge of the land. It may be a different matter if the road didn't exist already, but it's already there. I don't know why, we keep, this is just free commentary here, but we keep wanting bigger. And I did raise a family in a 1,000 square foot home, and it was just fine. But it seems like that's not what people want anymore. They want a lot more space. And that's okay. And sometimes I wonder if that extra square footage comes from extra levels of the house rather than actual footprint on the land too, right? So that's always a question. And a bit like, I guess the question when we have stories like that, if they check out, right, where another intergenerational attempt to get some farming enhanced or going is, I think our attitude at the regional district should be, what can we do to help, right? And I'm glad staff refers to that, effort we're going to do in the next year to really make that link between enhancing agriculture and livability for families. It's critical if we're going to get anywhere, because if we turn down things like that and the ministry turns down things like that, unless, again, so I'm making basically the same comments as earlier, if it's a big fake out, which it doesn't sound at all like it is here, where people are just, trying to create additional value but not actually farm, this doesn't seem to be the case. So yeah, I'll leave it to the chair and the area C director to comment. I'm not quite sure what to do with this one because I don't think there's new information to refer back to anyone. So I guess I'll cede the floor for now and see if we can get a little bit creative.
Thanks, Director Arbor. Director Greed?
Thanks, Madam Chair. And through the chair and the CAO to the applicant, what are you guys farming right now? You got some cattle?
Yeah, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Currently, right now, we have 60 bred cattle and calves from them. Till I really went downhill, we raised 20, 30 hogs a year. It's hard to see in the diagram there, but the access road is on the far left, and it goes from the structures you see on the top left-hand corner,
Yeah.
which is the residence that my wife and I live in. Excuse me, about 2 inches down on the left-hand side, there is another dwelling, another structure. That was a hog barn and a poultry barn. In the past, we raised 300 broilers, 150, 200 turkeys every year. When I say past, I mean as recently as a year and a half, 2 years ago. My health's dramatically gone in the tank since then. At any given time, yeah, we have 60 plus cows, beef cows, Black Angus cattle.
You had the Black Angus, didn't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, sir, yeah. I rely on farm friends, the Huxham family. We buy excess feed from them. Roddy, my son-in-law in Cobble Hill, hauls feed from his farm up to feed my cattle during the winter. We'd like to go back, not only to where we were prior to my last accident. I've had surgery January 2nd. I haven't recovered from that. They don't expect I'll recover from it. But we'd like to expand, we'd like to expand what we were doing 2 years ago. Riley's currently driving back and forth, helping me as much as he can. Mike Huxham's old, he's as old as me. He comes over 2 or 3 times a week and assists me. We have farm friends in Wallacan Beach, the Walshes, the Potato family that farm 400 acres. They're continuously helping me. We desperately want to farm. I don't want to move off the land that I developed. I did everything on that place, to drain it, to fence it, to build all the structures. So if you guys have any more questions on what livestock I do raise now and what I did,
Yeah.
I have no problems.
Do you have water for irrigation at all?
You know what? Back to the map. When you see the line come up the left-hand side, you can see the hayfield. Basically, there's one large one near the highway with some timber on it. There's a smaller one on the left there, and then there's a blue line that divides it. And the hayfield on the right, you see a dark patch there. It looks like dark brown.
Yeah.
That's all low. That's peat soil. Right there where your arrow is now, if you come back a little bit to that blue line, there's a massive spring in the center of that timber, of those trees. We've always wanted, it was a problem when we purchased the farm 35 years ago. We never had water at the house. It was cost prohibitive to dig a trench from that spring all the way to our home. We always scrimp and save. We haul water from the spring till October. We buy massive amounts of water just to raise my family. The cattle drink from that spring. Of course, there's setbacks that don't allow the cows near the water, but there are water feeders there. And if we were permitted to build back there right off of our corral, one of the gentlemen said, Dave, you can't build a driveway a quarter of a mile long. Fellas, we get semi-tractor trailers up that left side, the little line is blocking that road. You can see the road. They're up there half a dozen times a year, either dropping calves off or picking mature fat cattle up. We want to build a driveway that's 20 meters off of my corral. I'll be able to throw an orange and hit my cow corral from there. I don't know. Is there water there? That is a fault. That whole hayfield is a fault. Peat bog and blue clay below it. From the hayfield to the highway, there's nothing. There's no water. We've had wells drilled commercially. Ralph Von Campen owned the building supply across the highway, Black Creek Building Supply. He never had water. He's tried to drill from that fault back towards the timber where we want to build. There's plenty of water. There's plenty of springs. And we had the well people from Fife well drilling said, Dave, drill your well back there. You can go down 75, 80 feet and you have plenty of water, but nothing from that fault line, that hayfield towards the highways, nothing. We've tried in 30 years. We've tried lots.
Dr. Reeve, any further questions?
Well, just that the agricultural APC encouraged it going forward, and yet the agrologists discourage it. So you just wonder if it's an exercise in futility to send it forward. I think it deserves to go forward because of their extenuating circumstance. I mean, all rules are basically, policies that may or may not be applicable to whatever is really happening on the ground. This is one of them. So, we look at our little list of rules and, it doesn't fit. Well, sure. But, there's extenuating circumstances and everything. So, yeah, I would be willing to send this forward, and especially in the fact that we are looking to do our own ag plan, and we're looking to maybe review the regional growth strategy. And I spoke previously about the fact that levels of government don't talk to each other, ministries don't talk to each other. This is what you're up against, right? So maybe there's a chance of a breakthrough here, or at least you have to try. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Director Grieve. A few comments from myself. Thank you so much for adding, supplementing the information from the application. I have to actually disagree with the agrologist's report. I'm surprised that they would have wanted, well, I can understand if they had known maybe about the road that you already have. That's always kind of the limiting factor of especially for an agrologist to approve a house set way back from access, from your access road, is the extra land that would have to be taken out of production to put a road to that property. But as it already exists, it makes sense to not put your house on your valuable and productive farmland. That's what we did on our property, and it's been great. The agrologist also recommended potentially you switching houses, having a smaller house, to the back and your family to the front. But you're stating that you're already short on water. And to put a family up at the front, I think, is not going to be, able to meet their water needs. As you mentioned, we don't want people driving all the way into Comox to take showers. I think as much as the rules were put in place in the Agricultural Land Commission to prevent, giant homes from being built, and, putting the value of, as we all know, the value of agricultural land, the land itself is not gone up, but it's really the homes that are put up on properties that really escalate the price of the land. But it sounds like your family are genuinely wanting to put this and keep it in production and keep it in the family. So, in light of that information, I'm also in support of putting this forward to the ALC and asking them to reconsider, the size of the home. I don't think it's extravagant. We're not asking for a 5,000 square foot home, as we've seen in the Lower Mainland, and so much bigger. It's a modest size home for a family of 4. So, because of those reasons, because of the agricultural experience of it's your daughter's family, I also believe that the land will stay in production, having them there, and, hopefully speedy recovery to you. I know farming can be extremely hard on the body. I'm already feeling, and I've just only had 10 years of farming, so I can just imagine. Any other comments from directors or questions? Okay, and we don't have any addendum? No, okay. So thank you. I'll excuse you from the table. Thank you. On receipt, is there all in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. And would someone like to move a recommendation? Director Arbor.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear from the 2 colleagues. So I'll move that we refer it to this application, that we accept it, and then we refer it to the Agricultural Land Commission. I do see in the staff report. Okay, well, I'll let that be seconded, and then I'll speak to it.
Seconded by Director Grieve. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I see that that staff, says the proposal is not fully consistent with the OCP, and we may consider additional comments to the ministry. And I think what I would like in an ideal world is almost to summarize some of the key points that were raised by the applicant around, because I think when you see things on paper like that, you miss kind of the story, the knowledge of the land and the rest of it. So I'd like some of those key points summarized, and I'm not sure if that was presented to the agricultural APC as well, but it's that story is really important, because we can't lose sight of what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve more land and production. I'm sure the ALR agrees with that, and we're trying to help families, stay in their home, and the new generation get established at a time where we're having a deep affordable housing. So applications like that should go forward. So I would even enthusiastically submit that to the ALR, but I won't add that in there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The staff are you okay to summarize the points that were made?
Madam Chair, and to the directors, if their board decides to move this application forward, I would encourage that maybe provide a rationale why you guys are supporting this.
Okay.
The application, that the staff report itself will be a package that will be sent to the LC. But if this board decides to move forward, maybe their applicant can provide us with a small little package about the rationale, and we can include that at the board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Director. Go ahead, Director Arbor first.
Yeah, just as a follow-up, I could make a quick list right now, which is the road already exists. The side by the road is by the highway is good agricultural land. And clearly this, we have an experienced farmer moving in, and overall, from a water perspective, it also seems to make sense. So those would be some of the key points I would highlight for the ALR to consider.
Director Brief, did you want to add, or a separate question?
Yeah, just for that, perhaps we could gather that together and just have staff do a little wordsmithing on it.
Yeah.
So we have a little package that goes out when we send it to the LC.
And if I can also add to that, one of the other issues we have is the other potential would have been to also have a section 514 on this property and actually have it subdivided. And by going forward with just this proposal, it keeps the property intact in its entirety. So a much better option for agricultural viability to have this property as one. So another reason, Director Grieve?
Yeah, in addition, I think that we have to stress the fact that we support aging in place in rural areas. And this speaks to that. And, you say, well, just have mom and dad move into the 900 square foot house. Well, what do you do with your china cabinet, your couch and chair, your bed and suite? Come on.
Thanks. I don't see any other comments. So we have the motion to send this application forward to the Agricultural Land Commission. All in favor? Opposed and carried unanimously. We have a second recommendation that's been moved, and I can second that the second dwelling within agricultural areas be addressed within our upcoming Comox Valley Agricultural Plan. Any comments on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And hopefully speedy recovery. Just a comment, I think we all know that the ultimate decision lies with the commission. So, we'll wait to hear how the commission rules. Thanks. Yeah. All right, and we'll call our CAO back. Okay, our next item up is proposed amendments to the Parkland Development Cost Charges Bylaw for receipt.
Move receipt.
Moved, and I can second, and over to staff.
Thank you very much, Chair and Directors, and Mark Hart from the Parks Department is here to present this report and answer your questions.
Thanks, Mark and Mark.
Thank you.
Can I control the slides from here? That's great. All right. Thank you, Madam Chair and the committee. We're here to propose a few minor amendments to the Parkland DCC bylaw. Just as some background for you, I know you know this, but just to keep it in the front of your mind, DCCs are a tool available to local governments designed to defray the cost of new growth and development in the region. They are meant to encourage smart growth and to ensure that that growth doesn't unduly burden the existing residents of the region. The CVRD has had its Parkland DCC in place since 2012, and in that time, we've collected $80,000 from it. As you know, in 2021, December 2021, the board considered amendments to the DCC and sent it forward to the Inspector of Municipalities. Unfortunately, in their review, they identified a discrepancy which unintentionally exempted a number of types of developments and proposed that we reconsider those amendments and resubmit them. And the province also recommends that we conduct a full review of the bylaw at some point in the near future. So I'll just go ahead and outline our recommendations. So we have two. The first is that we amend the bylaw. And just as a note, that will require us to rescind the previously proposed amendments. And the amendments that we propose are to retrain the previous change from the word room to bedroom as it pertains to tourist commercial accommodations. And just so you know, that means that we will be applying DCCs on a per bedroom basis. We also propose that we replace the words multi-residential with dwelling units and include a definition that's consistent with that of the zoning bylaw. So all types of developments would be evaluated on a per unit basis as opposed to a per lot basis. Finally, we propose that we shift the timeline for DCC payment from the subdivision stage to the building permit stage. So we see three options available to the board. You can accept the proposed changes as outlined in the report. We could table the changes for further consideration, or we could decide to not go forward with any further amendments. This option 3 would also require us to rescind the previously proposed amendments. Of course, staff support option 1. The second amendment or the second recommendation would be to direct staff to review the bylaw in 2023 and report back. Obviously, the option could be to direct staff to do so or to direct staff not to do so. We support the former. And that is all from us.
Thank you. Do directors have any questions? No? Director Grieve?
Thanks, Madam Chair, and through the CEO to staff. So is this going to directly affect the amount of dedicated money to the Park Service we're going to get? Or is it going to just redefine the bedrooms and as compared to rooms? Is there going to be a net gain, do you think, or about the same, or what is the advantage?
So to the chair, there are a few advantages to this. The most important, I think, being that we are consistent across our bylaws. So we don't have definitions in one that are inconsistent with definitions in another. It will streamline our processing. We've maintained the current rates. The DCC rates will stay the same. So the cost to develop the DCC implications of a new development will be the same as they were before. There is the possibility that shifting the timeline from subdivision to building permit may capture more dwelling units. It will capture more dwelling units, which will mean more money for Parkland developments.
It seems fairer for the developer to do it that way.
Through the chair, we agree.
Yeah, thanks.
I have a couple of questions. Well, first of all, I'm going to support the recommendations on the wording. My questions are actually around this number 2, the bylaw review. Did the province give you an idea or a flavor of why they were asking for a review? I'm still trying to figure out like what, it's going to be work and for what reason.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So there are a few reasons why you would conduct a bylaw review. Just for reference, I came from the city of Vancouver before this, and they review their bylaw annually. Of course, the cost implications of their bylaws far different than that of the CVRD, but it is recommended in their best practices guide that it is regularly reviewed. And the primary reasons you would do that are one, a major policy change, so change to the OCP or the RGS, which we clearly haven't seen yet. The other is a change to the cost of doing business, which we clearly have seen. So the cost of acquisition for new parklands has gone up since 2012. The cost of materials for capital asset projects has gone up. And so there would be some benefit to us reevaluating the rates to better reflect the cost of doing business from a parks perspective.
Okay. And do staff think that's, we just went through that whole exercise of getting rid of items on the management plan so that, the burden on staff would be, a bit better. Do you staff feel that it's worth the burden? I mean, we don't have a RGS review yet or an OCP review yet. Would doing it in 2023 be a good idea, or should we wait? I don't know if staff have a comment on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to pass it to Mark Harrison.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry for the hard question.
Madam Chair, thank you very much for that question. Really, I think what we could probably do is rather than a fulsome review, we can probably do more of an internal review that just looks at the financial implications of the Parkland ECC in 2023, rather than doing a fulsome review. And then my suggestion that we would do a fulsome review after the regional growth strategy is completed.
I think that sounds like a better idea. All right, that's it for questions from me. Any of the directors are okay? Okay. All right, so then on receipt, all in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. So we have a couple of recommendations. The first one is to rescind first, second, and third reading of bylaw 694.
So moved.
Moved and seconded by Director Grieve. Any other comments on that? All in favor? Opposed, and that's carried unanimously. And then we have recommendation 2 that staff be directed to conduct a review of the our regional districts development cost charges bylaw number 238.
So moved.
Moved, and I can second. And so does that recommendation to do just the more financial review, does that need to be captured in the wording, or are staff okay with the way it's presented?
I think we're, pardon me, Madam Chair. I think we're good with the wording as it stands.
Okay, all right. So it's been moved and seconded. Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. We've moved the addendums.
We're at termination, but I'll speak on termination.
Speaking on
Move termination first.
Okay, and second, and you want to speak to that?
Yes, thanks. So I'd just like to pass on that I'm still staring at an Italian computer with a keyboard and everything's in Italian. So I thought I would pass on that. È stato un grande incontro. A domani, colleghi. So it was a great meeting. See you tomorrow, colleagues.
Okay, thanks. All right.
You gotta use your hands more.
Anyone opposed to termination? All right, thanks, everyone.
Bye.